Hi, welcome to the Nursing Dose with your host, Farah, aka Dr. Laurent, the nurse career coach. Today we have a very special guest. We are going to be talking about empowering leadership and excellence, a conversation with Dr. Renee Roberts Turner. So excited to have you on the show today.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. If you want to say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Renee Roberts Turner here, nurse executive, really passionate about helping others see possibilities. So, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much. So, we wanted to talk about leadership with you all. And if you guys are watching, let us know where you're watching from, what city, what country. Drop any comments or questions you might have in the chat. Even if you're watching the replay, we'll still go back and look at those because we want it to be interactive. So, talk to me kind of about your nursing journey and, briefly talk about high level. How did you get to be a nurse executive? And why are you so passionate about leadership and excellence?
So I actually was not planning to be a nurse. Actually, I wanted to be a physician, and so my undergrad degree was is in biology. And then when I finished school, I was like, gosh, like I don't think I'm ready for medical school. I really didn't have the confidence that I could actually pass the what is it called, the MCAT. And so I was talking to one of my college professors, and he was like, Renee, you talked a lot about your passion for people and having conversations, but you're also very passionate about looking under microscopes. So like, where do you see yourself? And I was like, well, I don't want to be looking under no microscope for the rest of my life, right? Like I love talking to people. So I decided that's how I ended up in nursing school. And I always say that it was one of the best decisions I've ever made because I think becoming a nurse has changed who I am in terms of making me more compassionate, making me see things out of other, through the lens of others. And so I started out as, of course, a clinical nurse. And then probably about 5 years into my career, I wanted to go back to school to get my master's degree. And I went and got a master's and I went back and forth between nursing leadership, nursing education, and advanced practice nursing. And I landed on a nursing education, not because that's where I wanted, but because I had gone on this trajectory with my best friend to be a nurse practitioner and realized that it was too much in terms of the clinical. And so I ended up with the master's in nursing education. Again, one of the best decisions that just fell in my lap because being a nurse educator, you know how to write goals and objectives. And that's how I think about everything in my life is goals and objectives focus. And then I started working in quality improvement and then Magnet. And I landed here where I am right now, which is the executive director for nursing excellence and child and family services. And so, yeah, I love what I do. I get to support the people that do the work. And I love problem solving and helping others again see possibilities. So that's my little trajectory. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. And we have a lot in common because I too went into education and I got my master's in education. And
Nice.
you're right. I think it does help with what we talked about, like strategic planning, because in
Mhm.
education, it's like you work backwards, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
what's the result or outcome you want to have, and then kind of leading it back to the objective. So
Exactly.
that's amazing.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so tell me some of the early challenges that you've had in leadership because I love to talk about this. I love leadership development. And I feel that we need to do a little bit better in nursing in terms of supporting our leaders
Mhm.
and specifically in the area of transitioning to leadership, whether it's
Mm,
a nurse manager role or a higher director type role. I
yeah.
feel like we need to standardize education a little bit more because um, we need more support. So what are your thoughts on that, and what challenges did you find kind of climbing up the leadership
Yeah.
ladder?
I always say I'm so grateful I'm a little bit naive. So I go into situations like very naive, not thinking about all the things I need because I think if I thought about all those things, I would never do anything.
Mhm.
I think if I were to support myself looking back, 13 years ago,
Yeah.
a mentor is critical. And I wish I had one earlier on in my leadership career.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too, and this is controversial, but I think you need a mentor that looks like you. That is a must. And then I think you need if you're a minority, you could have any other type of mentor. But it is crucial that you have a mentor that looks like you. And the reason why is when you're in leadership, what I found personally is you are in situations, you encounter people, and things that happen to you that only someone that looks like you can understand. And if you don't have someone to bounce those ideas or those
Mhm.
situations off of and to get feedback from, you start to trickle and can go down this hole where you kind of are kind of contradicting everything you're trying to do, right? Because you become so self-absorbed. And so it's important that we surround ourselves by support. I think that is probably the number one lesson I learned. And I wish I had someone that looked like me as a leader earlier on to help support me. I think the other piece is, as leaders, we have to invest in our own professional development. No one's going to hand you anything. And so if you are leading others, it is up to you to constantly be thinking about and reflecting on those experiences. I say all the time, as leaders, we have people's futures in our hands. We make decisions about their careers. And so we have to take that seriously.
Yeah, I mean, awesome, awesome tips. I know we talk about mentorship a lot in nursing, and same with you. I regret not having enough mentors when I first started. I mean, even though I had some great preceptors, actually, the first preceptor I had was a male nurse in the emergency department, which was a little different because there wasn't a lot of male nurses, 20 years
Mhm.
ago. So that was interesting. And then when I went into my first education role, I had a lot of challenges getting to that role. But I love how you said you need a mentor that kind of looks like you, right? That represents matters piece. Because the best mentors that I had, and actually she was my indirect supervisor, her name is Dr. Althea Mighton. And she is a force. Like, she had 2 doctorate degrees, all these certifications, and she was, you know, an amazing, amazing mentor. And she was the senior director of education. And you didn't really see that a lot in
Mhm.
big organizations, right? Because we know that we lack diversity
Right,
in leadership.
right.
So talk to me a little bit about that. And what are some strategies for you that maybe you've helped others with, like succession planning, helping novice leaders get into leadership positions? And what are some tips that you have for aspiring nurse leaders that want to get there, but they're like, I'm not given the opportunity. Like, what should I do to get into leadership?
Yeah. So definitely, like you said, the mentoring piece is huge. I think also identifying like what it is that you really want to do. And the only way to, well, one way to do that is to have conversations again with your mentor. I think strategically planning about how you're going to get there. And so there's a lot of tools out there about, around in terms of how you can do that. But planning out, like we talked about earlier, with our background in education, we're always thinking about the end goal and then what are the steps that are needed to get there. I think the other really important piece here is sharing that with your manager or with your leader, because they can help you identify opportunities that you may not even be aware of. When things come up, special projects or whatever, they can put you on those projects. And so sharing, in a space where, especially your leader, that can help you advance some of your goals. But I think, again, planning, mentors, and then again, sharing that information with those that can help you advance.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I wanted a little about some of the resources that are out of this organization, and there's many organizations that can help you with leadership development, but one in particular is the American Organization of Nurse Leaders, right? So
Mhm.
they actually have nurse leader competencies, right?
Wow.
Because when we think about leadership, I feel like sometimes some leaders are thrown into leadership and it's just
Mhm.
kind of like they don't get a structured orientation or a
Right.
structured long enough mentorship program. And it's like, oh, kind of like figure it out. And
Yeah.
then this is what happens. They're not supported and it's very difficult for them to succeed.
Right.
So, leadership is a specialty. Like, you wouldn't pull out a med surg nurse and say, hey, go to ICU and just figure it out. Right.
Exactly.
So how have you talked about the importance of investing in your professional development and growth? What are some things that you have done uh,
Mhm.
to to grow as a leader in nursing, and what would you recommend for potential others? 'Cause I know it's different for everybody of
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting you said that. I actually wrote a book. It's called The Diamond Model, and I came. I wrote this book about a year and a half ago, and I created this book because I kept coming back to, like, to your point, what is the framework that I use to advance myself? How do I help others advance? And in nursing, we talk a lot about nursing excellence. We talk a lot, and that to me means an organization's trajectory to, let's say, magnet. But that is from an organizational standpoint. And I kept saying, like, from an individual, how do I, as Nurse Renee, contribute to this global nursing excellence for my organization and for the world? And that's where I came up with this diamond model. And the diamond model has 7 components. Personal excellence is one, and then followed by leadership, mentors, education and development, practice, and I know I always get tongue tied with this one, evidence and practice, networking and relationships, goals and outcomes. And so putting all that together and constantly and intentionally working on those things can help you advance in a purposeful manner. There's a lot of evidence out there that speaks to engagement, and looking at that model and seeing how you can be engaged in your work environment can help with retention. And so I think thinking through that model has helped me professionally. I didn't realize that I was doing all those things intentionally, but once I put that model together, I realized that I've been able to advance using those methodologies and those concepts.
That's amazing. So we'll definitely have to share that book link and all your links a little bit later, so you guys could check out her book and check out this framework, which is an excellent framework to have if you are a current leader or maybe an aspiring, nurse leader. And you mentioned some really important things, networking.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about it in a little bit. Like, I'm throwing a conference, y'all, and I'm telling you, Dr. Renee Roberts Turner came through. She's going to be a vendor, and she was one of the first people to get a ticket. So, we'll talk about that more later, but it's going to be all about networking and visibility. So talk to me how networking has helped you grow in your leadership career.
Okay. So I'm putting my hand up because I'm the first to say I don't like networking. I don't like it. I'm an introvert, even though I like to talk. I'm not that girl. Okay. I'm not the one that I would rather be at home in the bed chilling. That's what I would rather do with all my life. But I know the importance of it, and I've seen the power of it. And so it's important that each of us figure out what that looks like for us, right? So I can't network like some of my colleagues out here network. I can't do that. That's just not who I am. But it is so important that we do it. I have had opportunities that I would never have. I met you through networking. I met you because I met Nurse Alice at another event where I was networking, and then we met through, you see what I'm saying? So I think doors are opened up. You see possibilities. You're having these conversations that you would never be able to have if you didn't just have, if you didn't network. And so one strategy that has worked for me is joining professional organizations. There's tons, you mentioned one, but there's tons of professional organizations that you can meet. They create the platform for you to have conversations and get to meet other people, which then opens the doors for opportunity. And so I think it is huge for us as nurses to make sure that we're networking. Whatever the strategy works for you, whether it be a professional organization, whether it be within your own organization, because that's just as important, that you're networking within your organization. I remember many, many years ago, I tell this story all the time because it's one of my favorite, because they brought in a little bit of street lingo to work. But one of my colleagues said to me, street cred is really important, and street credibility in terms of your work environment is what other people say about you. Well, they're not going to say anything about you if they don't know you and you're not taking the opportunity to network. So networking and those relationships are huge internally and externally to your organization.
I love that. And something else that I want to bring it back to, you talked about that visibility piece, right? If no one knows about you, or, if you're an aspiring nurse leader and, you're sitting in the corner just working, and you think, getting an extra degree, getting more certifications is going to get you up there, but it's not happening. It's probably because you're not leveraging networking and you're not articulating what it is that you want. So earlier you mentioned that you should probably go to your maybe supervisor or, the leadership team and say, hey, you know what? I may be interested in so and so role maybe
Hmm.
next year or in
Right.
6 months, or like, can you
Right.
talk to me about how I can get there? I don't think many nurses do that. They just think for some reason they might just get automatically promoted. So, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but there's someone named, I believe his name is like Harvey Coleman, and
Mm-hmm.
he wrote a book. I forgot the name of the book, but he talks about like advancement at work, and it's like a pie chart, and about only 30% of performance accounts for growth, and the other piece of it is actually exposure and image,
Mm-hmm.
your personal brand and how exposed you are. Like, do people know about you and do they know what you do?
Yep.
So can you maybe talk a little about that
Absolutely.
for the introverted nurse as well?
Yes, me. That's me. I'm definitely introverted. I mean, I will say this to you. If I didn't have people to help me, and they talk about advocates, they talk about um, coaches and all those things. But I think the other piece is you've got to establish relationships with people so that they're talking about you when you're not in the room, right? And so that means intentional reaching out. I remember my mentor to this, one of my strongest mentors, and every time I talk about her, I get all emotional because she's about to retire. But she had came to our organization, knew I was working on my doctoral program, and I needed some help with my project. I stopped her at the elevator. I was like, I need you to help me, and she never let me go since then. If I hadn't done that, all the other doors that opened up for me probably wouldn't be open. And so sometimes you have to just step in and ask.
Yeah.
People, they can't, you think that they see your work and they should know, and that's enough. And sometimes I get in that space too. I'm like, they see my work, they see my work. But you know what? I mean, come on, Renee. Like, I'm like, Renee, wake up. They don't know everything you're doing. You're behind this door in your office working. No one really knows all the things that you're doing. And so it's important that we share that. Now, what you don't want to be is arrogant, right? You don't want to be cocky, but there is a way to share it in a way that comes across that can be authentically you, and so that they see your worth.
Yeah, because I mean, confidence is part of it, right? So, like, I do career coaching with novice nurses, new graduates, and nursing students. And I think one of the biggest things that we work on is mindset and developing that confidence, and also just being very confident in the way you communicate,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
especially as a leader, like, I've been in the C-suite, talking to CEOs and,
Mm-hmm.
CNOs, and there's a certain, you need to be able to master a certain level of confidence where people will listen to you, especially
Yes.
as a leader.
Yes.
So I feel that there's a special balance in a way of a leader that can really connect with people, no matter where they are in the organization or wherever you're leading. So much so that they don't even know that you're the leader, right? That they're so comfortable with you. But then when you need to command that attention in a C-suite or something, like, they're going to listen to you.
Right.
Because we
Right.
know that sometimes when in the C-suite, you could be talking and, you got somebody over there, like, I don't know, nothing against surgeons, let me just say. And then, like, maybe the surgeon will cut you off and be like, especially being, women,
Mm-hmm.
you really have to command that attention. So, but, not also, like you said, be cocky or seem like
Right.
you're aggressive.
Right.
It's very difficult to navigate. So can
It
you
is.
talk to me about that?
So I get that. I'm going to add in two other variables that I have personally. I am 6'2".
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm a Black woman. So add all that in. So I'm tall and I'm angry.
No, you're not.
I'm just saying those are stereotypes.
That's
So you add in the stereotypes, right? And you add in that I'm a woman, and you add in that I'm a nurse, and I'm in this space where nursing and physician. So you got all these stereotypes, all of this politics and all of that. And so again, you have to figure out how to bring a little bit of your authentic self, right? Because I can't bring all of it. Me and my boss talk about this all the time. There's no way I can bring all of Renee Roberts Turner up in here. There's no way I could do it. No
There's
one
no way
could.
you can bring it back. I just
They can't take it. They can't take it. And I probably, that's not so this is a professional environment, right? So
right,
start
right.
there, professional environment. So the professional Renee is showing up and I need to be aware of how I look. I need to be aware of how I come across. And sometimes, depending on what's going on, I'm better than that. I do a better job than other times. It is what it is. But I think we must be aware. And the other thing that I talk a lot about with my team is, you know, make sure whatever you're adding in terms of the conversation is value added. A
Mm,
lot of people, because I want to make sure every time I talk, they listen, right? So when I bring something, it's adding to the conversation. I'm not going to repeat what you already said because we were listening. Well, we should be, but
yeah.
I'm going to add value to the conversation. And if I don't have anything to add, then I'm not going to say anything because again, we're in a space where there's a lot of intellects, a lot of people that have things that, but if I don't have anything else to add, there's no need of me repeating what you said. It's a waste of your time, waste of my time. I only have so many breaths.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important again that we think about how we want to be perceived and who we're representing as well,
Yes.
and make sure that we're stepping in when we need to step in and adding value to the conversation.
Oh, that's amazing, amazing tips. I love that. And you're right. There's a lot of talk about, being your full authentic self at work, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's I agree. Like there's a place and a time. If you're working or in certain settings, you have to have that situational awareness
Hmm.
of kind of where you are.
Hmm.
Um, and I think also emotional intelligence, like, oh my God, emotional
Yes.
intelligence. I struggled with that as a new nurse in the
Hmm.
emergency department because, when we're really passionate
Hmm.
and we're
Hmm.
big advocates and we have big energy, like I have a lot of big energy sometimes. And I'm gonna, especially if you're an ER nurse, right? Critical, it's like life or death.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will perceive you
Hmm.
a little differently than you really intentionally mean to come across.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I had some trouble with that, but I've now evolved, right? And for those that don't know emotional intelligence, you should definitely look it up because not only in
Hmm.
your personal life it's going to help you, but in your professional
Hmm.
life.
Absolutely.
And I always talk about leading yourself, and that's kind of like part of that emotional intelligence. If you can't control your emotions and lead yourself first, you're going to have a very difficult time in leadership.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
can you maybe talk a little about that, and like I guess
Yes.
a little bit of self-care and really how to, I know conflict management is a big one.
Woo. Yeah.
Avoid
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah, I don't avoid it. I step into it. I mean, not that I love conflict, but I believe avoiding it causes way more issues down the road. And so I challenge my team to step into it because
Mhm.
in the end, we're all here for this one mission, no matter what it is. I mean, even if it's in my personal business, I'm here for this mission. And so I'm going to step into the conflict. We're going to fight it out and then we're going to get to a resolution. And it might be that we step away. You know what I mean? For a little bit or forever. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. So I don't avoid a conflict. I like to step into it.
I love it.
And that might just because I think I'm a fighter. I think I'm just saying, I think. But I think that, so I missed the question. This happens to me because I start to go on
Well,
and on.
I'm throwing it all in there, like mixing it up. I like to put it all together. So I
Love
basically
yourself.
said, kind of like, what are some strategies or what has helped you with your emotional intelligence,
Okay.
how to like navigate certain difficult situations
Yeah.
in nursing? Because some people will say some crazy things to us.
Oh, yeah.
How
So
do you
I'm not,
handle?
I don't, how do I, so I have to, first of all, I try my best to be in the moment because sometimes, and a lot of times when I do that, it allows me to listen a little bit better so that I know that that's a trigger for me, right? Another exercise, and again, this is in my Diamond Model workbook,
Mhm.
is around understanding your own personal values. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of my values is fairness, being fair to people, equity. And anytime I feel like it's violated, it could be in a very innocent conversation. I can feel myself starting to bubble up. And so understanding that your triggers can help you be more aware of when it's happening in situations. I think it's just something we have to constantly work on because like you said, you're passionate about whatever it is you're passionate about. When something happens and there's a violation of that, you can, things can happen. And so we just have to give ourselves a little bit of grace to be able to step back and be like, okay, that didn't feel good, that didn't, and then step back in. But
Right.
I think we have to be aware of the things that drive us and that are really important to us so that we can show up in the way we want to be seen. And we want to be, there's a certain way we want to be seen and we want to show up in that way as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've struggled, honestly, hey Alice,
Hey,
hey,
Alice.
I can't wait to see you. One of the things I struggle with in my leadership roles and being a director in all these different roles is honestly, I think communication.
Mm,
You know, having clear communication in terms of what you want your team to know, and
mm,
even because it can really get a little cloudy sometimes. And it's like, oh, well, I said this, I thought this, even through
right.
email communication.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think one of the biggest things that we can always improve on is how we communicate, whether
Hmm.
it's an email, whether it's on a phone call, in person, uh, and listening skills. Like I
Yes.
have to work on my listening skills sometimes because I could be very impulsive. Um, but communication,
Yeah,
such a huge factor because
I
you can,
agree.
especially with like change management
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're doing big initiatives. What are some strategies you would tell others that can help?
So I think when you're working with a team, everybody. What I remember having this conversation with my mom one time. I was talking about a team member. She was like, "Well, maybe they need a different strategy. Maybe you need to do it differently." And I think from that, I remember when I'm working with each of my team members, I communicate with them differently depending on what they need. And so it's important. Again, this is the relationship piece because then it impacts how the conversations you're having with people and understanding what their motivators are and drivers are. Because a lot of times, to your point, we're trying to get someone to do something. We're trying to help someone see something. And so if you can talk to them in a way that they understand, but again, that takes time. So then if you don't got the time for that, then it's important that you maybe restate what you're saying. Maybe you put it in an email and you follow it with a phone call. You know what I mean? If it's something that's really important. But I think we have to. The other thing, and I guess we learn this as educators too, is that
Yes.
people need information in more than one way, right? Like I need to see it visually, and then I need somebody to call me and tell me it. Like I need to hear it auditory. And so,
Yeah.
knowing that we're all adults, it's important that we remember that people might need to hear it more than one way.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Can you? Oh my goodness. Seriously, like leaders out there, like in the emergency room, sometimes we would walk in and they would love to introduce change. Like literally every week, it was something different. And I'm like, can we get some, ahead of time talk?
Yeah.
You can't just change policies and like, boom, next week you're implementing. Like change management needs time and planning.
Right.
So,
Right.
and you touched upon such a great point is like, really getting to know your team and building those trusting relationships
Hmm.
because it's you never know what people are going through at home and whatever. So really, I think when your team understands that you're truly genuine, you're transparent in your communication and in
Hmm.
your integrity, they will go above and
Yeah.
beyond for whatever the purpose of
Absolutely.
the organization you're
Absolutely.
trying to do. But when you start, crazy things like micromanaging and not trusting your team, that's when
Yeah.
it all really falls apart. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, how can they get the diamond model in your book? We're going to share the links. Where
Yeah.
can they find it?
Sure. So my diamond model you can find on my website, Renee Roberts Turner, Renee Roberts Turner.com. You can find my book and my workbook there. And also I'm on Instagram, Renee Roberts Turner.com and LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn right now. So on
Yes.
LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
I'm going to drop all your links in the book and everything. And I
Okay.
wanted to quickly talk about the conference before we end. So we're going to be at the conference. You're going to be exhibiting as a vendor there. And I'm so excited to have you there. So the conference is going to be March 8th, which is International Women's Day in
Yes.
Florida at the Museum of Art. So definitely contact me if you're interested to go. Alice is going to be speaking. I mean, the lineup is crazy. So tell me kind of what you're excited about.
I am super excited about, of course, the networking because it's going to be
Yeah.
forced, right? Anytime you have to conference is forced. So I'll be able to get some networking done. I'll have my diamond model there as well. And I'm happy to, I'm excited about meeting all the people that'll be there and being there and talking to them and interacting with your phenomenal guest lineup. Excited, very excited.
Awesome. Thank you again for supporting and being there. And thank you, Alice. And then just lastly, what do you want to share with the audience? Just in terms of, whatever we talked about, leadership excellence or,
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that I've learned probably over the last 2 years is, I think we should not allow people to put us in boxes. There's so much that we can do as nurses, and I believe the reason why we can do so much is because we're taught to be able to think critically, right? And a lot of our whole program is created around critical thinking. That critical thinking helps us think about things differently, think about new and innovative things. And so don't allow people to put you in a box. I know Nurse Farah talks a lot about entrepreneurship, and there's tons of opportunities out there for us as nurses to be creative and to think outside the box. So I think that's probably the number one takeaway for me right now in this moment that I want to share with you all is continue to advance and think about things differently. Yeah.
Do you want to share about your side business?
So back in August, I launched a suit line, a women's professional suit line called Turner and Spencer. And I've been working on this suit line for over a year and a half. Again, this is a space where I never thought I would be, but super excited about it. Being a tall girl who loves suits, who loves a tailored, well-fitted suit, was so excited about starting this. And so if you look up turnerandspencer.com, you'll see our suit line there. And so again, outside the box, this is my fun business. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I put it up right there, and I'm going to put all the links later. And were you at the DMPs of Color in Philly?
No, I was there. We had a booth for Turner and Spencer at DMPs of Color. Yeah.
I know Dr. Danielle McCamey, she was rocking the suits.
She had on our suits. Yeah, she was our first, the president, yes, of DMPs of Color was rocking our suits for 3 days. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Out the website, there's amazing suits. Go there, check it out, support. Tell your friends. You don't have to be a nurse to wear it.
No, absolutely not. You don't got to be a nurse. They're for everybody. This is for everybody, for all women.
All women.
All
and
women.
This is gonna be for International Women's Day, and I'm just so proud of you with all the things that you're doing. Like you said, like not to put yourself in a box.
No.
And really follow your vision, your dream, whatever it is that you want to do. And it doesn't have to be related to nursing, obviously.
Yeah.
You've created this suit line, this business, and you do consulting as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's tons of stuff that we can do. Again, just thinking about things differently, like seeing opportunities where we're doing it this way. Why do we have to do it? That doesn't make any sense. And thinking about it differently. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So definitely connect with Dr. Renee Roberts Turner. Check out all her links. We'll put them down below. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We'll have you back again next year. Definitely subscribe to the Nursing Dose Farah. Also, check out the conference.
Yes, check out the conference.
Nurses Making Money Moves. And there's going to be so many people there. So, just connect with both of us. And again, such a pleasure speaking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you. You're like, such an inspiration and mentor to so many nurses out there. So keep doing your thing. And where are you located? You're in DC, right?
I'm in DC. Yeah, I'm in Washington, DC, DMV area. Yes.
So definitely wherever you are, send her a message and see about her consulting or, get yourself a scoop for your next interview. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Oh, look who it is. We have. Do you know Charlene Johnson?
I don't, but I'm about to.
Podcast.
Okay.
When she has a wonderful podcast. I can't even. It's blanket. Charlene, tell us your podcast because you're listening. When the moment chooses you, I think it's called.
Nice.
There you go. Connections right there.
Yes, love it.
So
See?
yes, see you next time,
All
everybody.
right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.